Hello and good day to everyone out there. This is Whole Life Ministry in conjunction with Royal Advent Television, presenting to you your counselor. I'm your counselor, Dennis Barrow, and we are here to provide healing for your body, your soul, and your mind. We are discussing a very, very important topic which deals with understanding and managing stress. Understanding and managing stress. Remember, this is another day that the Lord has made. So let us rejoice and let us be glad in it. So when stress comes along, when you understand that God has given you this day, you will rejoice and you will be glad and you'll make provision so that stress doesn't get the better of you. And so today, as we continue, I want to remind you of what we did last session. In last session, we talked about understanding stress, and we discussed the fact that a lot of internal systems are turned on and off because of the external environment. And we see this happening without our willful control. We talked about you seeing food or smelling food and your digestive system is turned on because, oh, this smells good, I love this, whatever it is. And your digestive system is turned on, your mouth begins to salivate and your stomach begins to So you see it, that turns on automatically. But you see that same food with flies all over it and it turns you off. We talked about the last time. We also said that sometimes we have critical internal responses. And this critical internal response comes to us when something significant happens to us. Also, we are told that when we perceive danger, that critical internal response takes place. And we, at that time, are under stress. And this is where we have the fight and flight system, where we can flee, we can attack, approach, or we avoid. Now here is the thing that's important to understand. When we are in a stressful situation, how we handle the situation determines whether we are handling the stressors or whether the stressors are controlling us negatively. Also remember that ill health can occur when there are too many stressors in any given period of time. So remember that. Also remember from last time we gave two definitions. The general definition for stress tells us stress is a symptom which reflects a conflict with some aspect of a person's environment. Remember, stress is not the problem. It is a symptom that tells us something else is happening and it's creating a problem for us. So always see stress. When you feel stress, you see it as a symptom of something else that's taking place in your life. Remember that. And then we looked at the psychological, physiological definition, which tells us stress is an event or situation that makes a heightened demand on a person's mental or emotional resources. It's an event, something that happens, or situation, something that's taking place, that makes a heightened demand. In other words, it's not a normal demand. It's a demand that's extraordinary on your mental, emotional, or emotional resources. We also said that stress can be caused by any and everything. Stress can also aggravate physical health. We said also that a major impact of stress is the ability to decrease the effectiveness of the immune system, which controls what diseases, viruses come into our systems and affect us negatively. And we also said the stress-prone person is primed to make extreme, one-sided, and global judgments. The stress-prone person. We cannot make proper decisions when we are under stress. And that's important to get. So look at it again. I gave you last time a self-examination, let's put it this way. And I gave you about 21, 22, or 23 different situations that may have taken place in your life in the year. And the more of these situations that have taken place in your life, the more likely you have been stressed out. So today we want to talk about how do we manage stress. Remember, we are talking earlier about what is stress. Now we are talking about managing it. And I want to give you 3 or 4 ways that we manage stress, and we'll explain each one. First of all, how do I manage or reduce stress? 1, remove the source of stress. That's the first way. Remove the source of stress. And let's talk a little bit about that today. Removing the source of stress. And whenever we talk about removing the source of stress, we are trying to understand something that's very, very important. And that thing that is important is to understand that we have limits. You are not limitless. In other words, you are not God. You have limits. And because you have limits, it says that I can't handle everything, every time, in all situations. Let's take a little bit of the Bible and see how we are formed. Let's look at Psalms 103. Psalms 103. And we'll see there what the Bible is saying about us. Psalms 103, and we want to look at verse 14. And I want you to get this. Psalms 103 and verse 14 says, "For the Lord knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust." In other words, we are not God. We are created a certain way, and because of the way we are created, and because of how sin has created so much issues in our lives and has degraded who we are, we have limits. And those limits, when they're exceeded, creates major stress for us. So look at it. Our lives are often filled with stress. Why? Because we refuse to accept the fact that we have limits. There are people who think they can do anything and do everything at the same time. And they pack their one day with so much. There are parents who take their kids. They may have 2 or 3 kids. They go to work. They come back, they pick up the kids, they take one to football, they take one to basketball, they take one to volleyball, they take one to music, they take one, and then they have to go back and pick each one up and then get home and cook and clean and then get them ready for bed, help with the homework. I mean, that is just too much for any one person. And could you imagine doing that 5 days a week? And then on weekends, running to the games, participating in this, participating in that, even participating in the church functions. So all week long, our mental, emotional, and physical faculties are under tremendous pressure to perform and to function. That, without demonstrating, I can't. No, not now. What that does is it put all these amount of stressors on us, and before you know it, we can't function anymore. We find ourselves tired, we find ourselves lethargic, we find ourselves not wanting to go again, but we still keep pushing because it's our children. And so we got to get the best for them. We got to make sure they are having all that they need to have. And I'm telling you, when we do that, we are just adding and increasing stressors in our lives. Remember, we are not God. We are not all-knowing or able to assume total control. We can't. Total control is never a part of who we are, and it should never be what we aim at. Sharing all our burdens and our loads is what is necessary. You see, the law of diminishing return tells us the more I add to my plate, the less effective I become. The more and more I add, the less effective I become. Which is saying I have less time to function and to perform any activity properly. And so I cheat myself and I cheat whoever else I am working with. That's why on your job situation, they hire people to do various jobs and they don't give one person everything to do. It's very important to understand that. We are not all-knowing. Remember that. We are human beings. So here's the thing. Because we are human beings, we need to eat. We need to sleep. And we need to relax. What we are saying here in this first area of reducing stress is to remove the source of stress. We live sometimes ignoring these realities that we need to eat, we need to sleep, and we need to relax. We ignore them. And these result into a lot of stress-related ailments. Here's the thing I want you to get from this first situation. Whenever we are feeling overwhelmed, we need to remember that we are not living within the limits and boundaries that God has created for us. Whenever you feel, I feel overwhelmed, my thought should go right back to where am I exceeding the limits that God has designed for me? Because being overwhelmed is saying I am out of control. Out of control doesn't mean I'm shooting up somebody, I'm killing somebody. No, out of control is simply saying I can't function efficiently and effectively the way I am going. And that presents the problem of being overwhelmed. And so it is important to now step back and look and determine, am I functioning within the limits that God has designed and created for me, or am I exceeding the limits? And that's very vital to get, because what it does is it helps us to set proper boundaries. And so once I start feeling overwhelmed, it is probably time for me to reevaluate what I'm doing. Reevaluate the situations in my life. Reevaluate the stresses in my life. Reevaluate the people in my life. Reevaluate my resources. Because if I am overwhelmed, it is suggesting that I have exceeded some part of what I am supposed to be doing, which we call limits and boundaries. Without limits and without boundaries, we have no clue how far to go, when to stop, what to do. What boundaries do, if you take and look at boundaries, you need to know that you put the boundaries around your house, which is your fence. This is how far you go. And within the boundaries, you can do whatever is necessary. You cannot do what you want to do outside of the boundaries. In other words, if you have the fence around your house, your neighbor's house is next to yours, the fence divides, you can barbecue in your backyard, you can cut your backyard, you can have your dogs play in your backyard, you can build a pool in your backyard. Those are your boundaries, and you can do what is necessary within those boundaries. You can't go to your neighbor's backyard and dig up and play, want to put a pool down. You can't go there and say, well, I'm going to barbecue here. You're overstepping your boundaries. Your limits, you are exceeding your limits. And it's the same with stress. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, you are exceeding your limits and your boundaries. And because you are doing that, the stressors affect you negatively. Just like your neighbor may want to call the police on you, affect you negatively, the stressors affect you negatively when you overstep those limits, overstep those boundaries. God has set boundaries for us for a particular purpose. He doesn't want us to live a life that's filled with stress. He doesn't want us to live a life that's overwhelming. He wants us to be able to trust Him, to enjoy life, to have fun, because He said, at my right hand are pleasures forevermore. And we can't enjoy pleasures forevermore if we are stressed out, if we are overwhelmed, if we are exceeding the limits and boundaries that God has set for us. So we reevaluate all that we are doing, whether it's with our children, our job, our church, our home, our friends, our social involvement. We reevaluate all of them, because it is vital to understand that any one of them can be creating the stress in our lives. So, what do we do when we reevaluate? We cut back. We cut back. And in cutting back, I might share with somebody else. So instead of having to run with all three children to different areas in one evening, the spouses can share that. One takes one child, one takes two. One pick up one pick up two. It's about cutting back whenever we feel overwhelmed. Because as I said, whenever we start feeling overwhelmed, it is saying that there's too much stressors in our lives. And when we reevaluate, we can see where the stressors are coming from and what they are doing and how they are affecting us. So we start cutting back. Now here is the thing that is very important for us to understand. There are some people who cannot say no. And that's the problem. Whenever you cannot say no, everything that someone asks you to do, you're going to find yourself saying yes, even though you know it's too much for you. But you still say yes, because it's difficult for you to say no. And the reason why people can't say no is they think people are not going to love them, people are not going to like them, people are going to have problems with them, they're going to think that they don't like them. Hey, it is your life. It is your life. You are the one experiencing the power of the overwhelming situation. You are the one experiencing the negative feedback from the overwhelming situation. You are the one experiencing the illnesses. You are the one experiencing the sad drawbacks. It's time to reevaluate. Cut back. Say no. There's one other aspect to this reevaluation. You cut back, you say no, that means you share with others, and then you slow down. You slow down. Running day in and day out, you never have a chance to relax or to rest, is one of the worst situations you can put yourself in. Because your stress level will always be at a high level, and it will continue along that level for days and weeks and months. And I guarantee you, that will destroy you. That will bring pain, bring ill health, bring all sorts of feelings that you don't even understand. Sometimes we go to the doctors and they can't find anything wrong with us. And when we check ourselves and they send us to the psychologist and the psychiatrist, they discover we are stressed out. Because stress appears as though there's some sort of an illness, and not only appears as though, but it creates illnesses in us. So today, I want you to start off, when you look at your life, I want you to start off by looking at your life and determining, am I seeing myself without limits? Am I functioning without boundaries? Am I just accepting what everybody asks me to do without thinking? God knows your frame. He knows you are but dust. And we must remember, I am not God. I have limits, and I can never function the way He functions totally. Let's set some boundaries. Let's set some limits in our lives so we can live lives that are pleasant, lives that are pleasing, and lives that will honor Him. Remember, this is another day that God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. May God bless you until we meet next time to continue this discussion on managing our stress.